Welcome to another episode of Monday Tsene with Pretoria Psychologists. My name is Meridian Mawelele. Today I'll be speaking to you about the role of social media on our mental health. So as we know, we are social creatures as human beings and we thrive on social connections with other people. And in the past 2 years, we have had to endure isolation, lockdown, and distancing away from our friends and families, even though every now and then we are able to connect, but it's not been the same. Social media has been really instrumental in helping us maintain a sense of connectivity with our fellow friends and the world at large and our families. But as we will come to see today, with anything in life, if there is too much use of it, it can have its own negative effects. But some of the most positive things about social media is that it has created a broader platform for various people to be able to express themselves, to post content that is helping others, post content that is advancing businesses, and it is also helpful in giving opportunities and resources to different people for various topics and various challenges. And it has also been an income for some people. For instance, the YouTubers who've earned millions over the period of lockdown by creating content for a broader viewers that are at home and really just hungry for content. So there's various benefits to access to social media, and also people have launched careers such as influencers, partnering up with branding, and also being able to establish other means of connecting to fellow business people through the social platforms. So social media can have a negative impact on our mental health, and we will look at some of the ways that this can take place. The first one that we're going to look at is the infamous FOMO, the fear of missing out. This is when an individual does not want to feel like they're not part of the trend, or they're not part of the cool kids, or doing every other challenge that everybody else is doing. So as it explains itself, you don't want to miss out on what is happening out there. The fear of missing out can exacerbate the feelings that other people are living or enjoying their lives a whole lot better than you are. And this can produce feelings of dissatisfaction with one's own life, and feeling as though your life is just dull and not as exciting as other people. Forgetting then that social media is only just a part of other people's life that they choose to show you. The other negative impact that social media can have on one's mental health is the inadequacy. So individuals post a lot of content that creates an image of how life should be, or how a person should appear in terms of weight, in terms of size, in terms of clothing, in terms of lifestyle. This can create an idea of what life is supposed to be, and therefore you could look back into your own life and feel as though you are not adequate compared to people out there. And as indicated, people only post snippets of their lives or pictures that they have selected, edited, but we still find ourselves susceptible to these. So it is important to remind ourselves that this is just a portion that we are exposed to, and that has been carefully calculated to be put on social media. And therefore we should check with ourselves those emotions when they show up, in terms of feeling that I'm not as good as that social media influencer, or I'm not doing this, or I don't have that. And the third thing is isolation. Research shows that individuals who tend to increase and spend a whole lot of time on social media tend to isolate themselves from other individuals on a face-to-face level. So these individuals will go more into investing more time into either creating content or following more other people on the socials, and therefore know who's who, and they have all the insights but lack that face-to-face contact with the real world. And therefore this can result in the individual feeling isolated, lonely, and not part of the greater society. And the fourth factor that could contribute to a negative impact of social media on our mental health is that individuals who tend to spend excessive time on social media can develop or exacerbate the feelings of depression and anxiety. As mentioned in the previous point, that comparison and that dissatisfaction with our own life can exacerbate those feelings of sadness and loneliness and anxiety about the future. So we need to be more careful when interacting on the social media platforms, that we are not feeding into the feelings of depression and the feelings of anxiety that maybe might be existing or that we are susceptible to. And lastly, the other aspect is cyberbullying. In South Africa, Twitter is considered to be a really dangerous place to be in vis-a-vis Black Twitter. There's a lot of violence or a lot of aggression expressed and abusive comments that can be spoken to other individuals, and this can have a long-lasting impact. And sometimes people are being trashed or their names are being dragged through various retweets, and this can really be damaging and impactful on our mental health. So it is important as individuals to interact on social media in a more responsible way, not only to protect ourselves, but to also respect and protect the well-being of other individuals. And this requires that we begin to assess how much of social media can we handle and how much of social media is negatively impacting on our well-being. And lastly, social media can also create a sense of self-centeredness, where individuals are obsessed about taking the right selfies, are obsessed about checking in, are obsessed about showing a specific way of life. But if we push ourselves to subscribe to this narrative and this idea of how this life is, we will find ourselves falling into the trap of not seeing life in its realist form, and therefore having unrealistic expectations of ourselves and the world around us, of relationships and other people. So another thing that I think is really important to look into, it's the hyperconnectivity, the extent to which we are continuously connected to or connecting to social media. For instance, we have access to social media on our phones, and it's really at just the tip of at the tip of a finger. It's really accessible. All the apps are on our phones, and this can create a sense of impulsivity. An individual might not be able to control themselves, and research shows that in the same way that we are addicted to drugs, food, sugar, social media can have the same effect as this dopamine that is released by maybe an alert or a like, therefore causing us to want even more to go back into the socials. So every time you get that like, there is a dopamine rush, and therefore we go back into the socials and we post more, and we are feeding into this desire and the craving, and therefore find ourselves hooked into social media. So we ought to be more careful of this hyperconnectivity and the continuous feed that social media produces. So lastly, it's to be careful and to social media responsibly, taking care of our mental health and ensuring that we are not always buying into all narratives that are being sold on social media, and we are always careful to protect ourselves, consuming responsibly, and also just not being so oblivious to the idea that this is how people live. In the same way that you take a picture and you select and edit before you post, somebody else out there is doing the same thing. So let us be careful and take care of ourselves so that our mental health can be intact even as we are engaging on the socials. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.